I was washing my hands in the bathroom when I heard my father give my house away. The hallway smelled like turkey and stuffing. In through the thin wall, I heard my dad's voice, steady and certain, telling my mother that the house would be a Thanksgiving gift for my brother's family. A real home for the kids. They'd move in after the holidays. Nobody had asked me. I owned that place. I paid for it. Every single dollar. I walked back to that table, sat down, and I smiled. I clapped. And then I did the one thing none of them saw coming. Welcome back to Hidden Family Secrets. I'm Marcus, 36. This is the story of the night my own family auctioned off the home I built with my bare hands, and what it cost them when I didn't play along. I drove to my parents' house every Thanksgiving with a casserole dish in one hand and a check in my coat pocket. The dish was for the table. The check was for whatever crisis hadn't been mentioned yet. My dad's medical bills, my brother's credit card, the leak in the roof nobody saved for. Somewhere along the way, helping stop being a choice and started being a job description. I was the reliable one, the one with the stable income, the one who answered the phone at midnight when something went wrong. When the furnace died, they called me. When the car insurance lapsed, they called me. When my brother Kyle overdrew his account 3 months in a row, somehow that landed in my lap too. I never said no. That was my whole problem. Though I didn't have a name for it yet. My parents' driveway was packed that night. Kyle's SUV, my aunt's car, and a moving truck parked across the street that I almost didn't notice. A big white rental truck, the kind you book by the day. I told myself the neighbors were moving early. I balanced the dish, climbed the porch steps, and walked into the warmest trap I'd ever seen. My mother opened the door, kissed my cheek, and said, "Your father has an announcement tonight." She was glowing. I should have asked what kind. Halfway through dinner, Dad tapped his glass. He said he had big news, but it could wait until dessert. My brother Kyle caught his wife Dana's eye across the table, and she smiled into her plate. That's when Kyle leaned toward me, casual as anything, and asked, hypothetically, whether my house could ever be rented out to family. I said I owned it outright. I could do whatever I wanted with it. He nodded like I had confirmed something he already knew. I cleared the dishes because that was my role. And I walked into the kitchen right as my mother's voice came through the wall, low and warm, the way she talked when something was already decided. She was telling Kyle's wife that the master bedroom faced east. She was saying Kyle could use the garage as a workshop. She was saying the kids could start at the better school district in January. My brain refused to process it at first. Then, my mother said the sentence I will hear for the rest of my life. She said, in that perfectly reasonable voice, "Marcus will understand. It's just him over there. He doesn't need all that space." Like my home was an accident. Like I had been handed too much by mistake, and the polite thing was to hand it over to whoever needed it more. I set the plates down slowly. My hands were steady. I expected rage. What came instead was something colder, quieter, the kind of stillness that means you have already made your decision without realizing it. Here is what that house meant to me. I bought it at 29 after 8 years of grinding. 2 jobs through my mid-20s. Accounting by day, bartending on weekends. I drove a car with a cracked windshield I couldn't afford to fix for a year and a half. My grandfather, Ray, sat across from me at a diner the day I signed my first apartment lease. He stirred his coffee and gave me the only financial advice he ever offered. Own something in your own name, son. Something nobody can vote you out of. I held on to that like scripture. Every raise I saved. Every bonus went untouched. When I finally had enough, I bought a 3-bedroom house on a quiet street with a backyard and a garage I had plans for. I signed those closing papers alone. No co-signer. Just my name. My family came to the housewarming. They ate my food, admired the yard, and then quietly filed it away as a family asset. A spare property with my name on it by accident. I didn't know they thought that. Not until the kitchen wall told me. My father stood at the head of that table like a man bestowing a kingdom. He talked about hard times and sticking together. He said that he and my mother had decided to give Kyle's family the house. He looked straight at me when he said it. Then he said the words that became the second knife. It's settled. The room erupted. Kyle's kids were jumping. Dana was crying happy tears. My brother had his arm around her, eyes on me, with an expression that wasn't gratitude. It was a dare. I raised my glass. I clapped. I said big news, because I had already made a different kind of plan. That night, I remembered an email I hadn't thought about in months. A buyer named Steven who had contacted me 8 months earlier with a clean, cash offer on my property. I had politely declined because I loved that house and had no reason to sell. I found the thread. His number was still at the bottom. I also called a real estate attorney the next morning. I asked her one question. If my name is the only name on the deed and the mortgage is paid off, can anyone stop me from selling? She laughed. Marcus, it's your property. No one else gets a vote. And then the second piece fell into place. My company had offered me a senior transfer to their Denver office, more money, fresh start. I had been about to turn it down because of my family. That morning, sitting on my floor with my attorney's words still in my ears, the fence disappeared. I called Steven. He picked up on the second ring. His offer still stood. Cash. No contingencies. We could close by December 22nd. I said that works. I gave my family one chance before I signed anything. I sat at my parents' kitchen table and said it plainly. The house is mine, my name is on the deed, and nobody asked me. My father said I was making it about money when it should be about family. My mother patted my hand and told me not to be selfish. She said Kyle needed it more, that I was young and could always buy another one someday. She said it kindly. That was the part that unlocked something in me. She wasn't cruel. She genuinely could not see why a house with my name on it wasn't simply available to whoever was struggling. I stopped explaining. Some conversations aren't arguments you can win with words. The closing took 40 minutes. The thing that takes a decade to build can change hands in 40 minutes with a pen, a notary, and 3 signatures. I drove back to the house one last time. Stood in the living room I had painted myself. The winter light came through the back windows the same as always, indifferent to ownership. I let myself feel the loss because it was real. Then I locked the door for the last time and drove home. That night, I accepted the Denver transfer in writing. Christmas dinner was packed. My father had invited half the neighborhood to watch him be generous with my house. He stood at the head of the table, talked about sacrifice and family values, held up a brass key on a ribbon, an actual prop, and announced that as of the new year, Kyle's family would have a real home. The room applauded. Champagne poured. Kyle's kids cheered. Everyone looked at me. I set down my napkin. I stood up. I did not raise my voice. I opened the folder I had brought and laid 2 documents on the table beside the champagne. The first was a copy of my deed with one name highlighted. Mine. The second was the closing statement, dated December 22nd. Signed and stamped. I slid them toward my father and said, "You can't give away something that was never yours." Then I said, "The house sold 3 days ago." The room didn't understand at first. My father picked up the closing statement. I watched his face change, slowly, the way ice goes gray before it cracks. Kyle set the brass key down on the table. The small click it made was the loudest sound in the room. When the shouting started, I didn't move. And that made them angrier than anything I could have said, because there was nothing to push against. My father roared that I had no right. Kyle said I had destroyed his family. Dana accused me of stabbing my own nephews in the back. I waited for a gap in the noise. Then I said quietly, so they had to go silent to hear it, "You kept telling everyone I didn't need all that space, that it was just me." I let that land. Then I said, "Well, now none of us have it." The room went dead silent. I left my father's house key on the table next to Kyle's useless brass prop. I thanked my mother for dinner because she had still cooked it and manners outlast everything. And I walked out. I left for Denver on December 26th, sunrise in my mirrors. By noon, my phone had 63 missed calls. I scrolled through them once, turned the ringer off, and kept driving. The only message I replied to was from my Uncle Gerald. It said, "You did the right thing. I remember when you bought that place. Don't let them rewrite that story." I wrote back 2 words. "Thank you. Here is the only thing I'll tell you, the way my grandfather told me things, plain and once. Loving your family does not mean letting them spend your life like it belongs to all of them. You are allowed to own something nobody gets a vote on, starting with yourself." That's where I'll leave it. The kitchen wall, the brass key, the closing papers, and 63 calls I never returned. If you've ever been the reliable one, the one everybody counts on and nobody checks on, Let this be your sign. Check whose name is actually on your life. Subscribe and stay with us.